Take out your wallet right now. Pull out a dollar bill, or a 10 or 100, whatever you have. Look at it. Really look at it. That piece of paper in your hand? It's not worth the paper it's printed on. I'm serious. The actual cost to print a $100 bill is about 14 cents. 14 cents of paper and ink for something you think is worth $100. But here's what's even crazier. That bill isn't backed by gold. It's not backed by silver. It's not backed by anything tangible at all. There's a line on every U.S. dollar that says, "This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private." But what does that actually mean? It means the only thing giving that paper value is the government saying it has value. That's it. That's the whole game. You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You trade your time, your energy, your life for pieces of paper that have no inherent value whatsoever. Paper that the government can print unlimited amounts of whenever they want. And they do. Oh, they absolutely do. In the last 4 years, the U.S. government printed more money than in the entire previous history of the country. Trillions of dollars created out of thin air, with a few keystrokes on a computer. And every time they print more, the money you already have becomes worth less. The hours you worked last year, worth less this year, the savings you accumulated over decades, losing value every single day. You've been scammed. We've all been scammed. And the scam is so big, so pervasive, so deeply embedded in how society functions that most people can't even see it. But you're about to. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you the greatest con in human history. How money went from being real, tangible, valuable, to being nothing more than numbers on a screen and promises that are constantly broken. I'm going to show you who's running the scam, how they benefit while you lose, and why they'll do everything in their power to keep you from understanding what I am about to tell you. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented history. This is economics. This is how the system actually works. And once you see it, once you truly understand it, you can never go back to believing the lie. So pay attention. Because what I'm about to reveal will change how you think about work, savings, retirement, and your entire financial future. Let's start at the beginning. Let's go back to when money was real. For most of human history, money meant gold and silver, precious metals, things that actually had value because they were rare, durable, and universally desired. If you had a gold coin, you had something real. You could hold it. You could melt it down. You could trade it anywhere in the world, and people would accept it because gold is gold. Its value is intrinsic. When ancient civilizations traded, they used gold and silver. When empires rose and fell, gold remained valuable. When currencies collapsed, people went back to gold. Why? Because you can't print gold. You can't create it out of nothing. You have to mine it from the earth. It takes time, labor, and resources. This scarcity is what gave it value. For thousands of years, money and gold were essentially the same thing. If you wanted more money, you needed more gold. If a king wanted to fund a war, he needed gold in his treasury. If you wanted to save for the future, you saved gold coins. This system had a built-in limit. You couldn't just create more money whenever you wanted. The amount of gold in the world was relatively fixed. Sure, new gold was mined every year, but it was a slow, predictable increase. This meant that money held its value over time. A gold coin from ancient Rome could still buy roughly the same amount of goods centuries later. But there was a problem. At least the people in power saw it as a problem. Gold is heavy. It's hard to transport. If you wanted to buy something expensive, you had to physically carry pounds of gold. This made large transactions difficult and risky. So someone had a clever idea. Instead of carrying the gold itself, why not carry a piece of paper that represents the gold? This is how paper money was born. In the beginning, paper money was just a receipt. You'd deposit your gold with a goldsmith or a bank, and they'd give you a paper receipt. That receipt said, "The bearer of this note can redeem it for X amount of gold." This was convenient. You could carry paper instead of heavy metal, and as long as you could trust the bank to actually give you gold when you asked for it, the paper was as good as gold. This system worked because the paper was backed by something real. Every dollar in circulation represented actual gold sitting in a vault somewhere. Governments loved this system because it made commerce easier. Merchants loved it because they didn't have to haul gold around. Everyone was happy, but then the scam began. The banks and governments realized something. Most people never actually came to redeem their paper for gold. They just used the paper. They traded the paper back and forth like it was gold itself. So the banks started thinking, if most people never redeem their paper, why do we need to hold 100% gold for 100% of the paper we've issued? They started issuing more paper receipts than they had gold to back them. This is called fractional reserve banking, and it's the foundation of the entire scam. Here's how it worked. A bank had 100 ounces of gold in its vault. Originally, they issued 100 paper dollars, one for each ounce of gold, 1-to-1 backing. But then they realized they could issue 150 paper dollars while still only holding 100 ounces of gold. Because on any given day, only a small percentage of people would come to redeem their paper for gold. As long as not everyone showed up at the same time, the bank could get away with it. And they did. They issued more and more paper relative to the gold they actually held. 10-to-1 ratios, 20-to-1, 50-to-1. This created money out of thin air. Paper that claimed to be backed by gold, but actually wasn't. And here's the beautiful part, beautiful for the banks anyway. They could lend out this extra paper and charge interest on it. Think about that. They created money that didn't exist, lent it to people, and charged interest on money they made up. That's the scam. That's where it started. For a while, this worked. Most of the time, people didn't all demand their gold at once. Banks made enormous profits. Governments loved it because they could borrow more. But occasionally, people would lose trust. They'd worry the bank didn't actually have the gold, and they'd all rush to the bank at the same time to redeem their paper. This is called a bank run. And when it happened, the scam was exposed. The bank would open its vault, and there wouldn't be enough gold. People would panic. The bank would collapse. Chaos would ensue. This happened repeatedly throughout history. Banks failing because they issued more paper than they could back with gold. And every time it happened, governments would step in, promise to regulate banks better, and then allow the exact same scam to continue. Because governments were part of the scam. They were issuing more currency than they had gold to back it. They needed fractional reserve banking to fund their wars and their spending. But the ultimate scam, the final evolution of this con, happened in the 20th century. In 1971, President Richard Nixon did something that changed money forever. He took the United States off the gold standard completely. Up until that point, even though the dollar was no longer directly redeemable for gold by citizens, it was still theoretically backed by gold. Foreign governments could redeem dollars for gold at a fixed rate. This put a limit on how many dollars could be printed. If you printed too many dollars relative to your gold reserves, foreign countries would start demanding gold and you'd run out. But in 1971, Nixon said, "No more. Dollars are no longer redeemable for gold, not by anyone, not by other governments, not by anybody." This was called the Nixon shock, and it was the moment money became completely fake. From that point forward, the dollar was backed by nothing except the promise of the U.S. government. It became what's called fiat currency. Fiat is a Latin word meaning, "let it be done." Basically, it has value because the government declares it has value, not because it's backed by gold, not because it represents anything real, just because the government says so. And here's the thing. Once money is no longer tied to gold, there's no limit to how much can be created. Gold? You can't just make more of it. You have to dig it out of the ground. Paper money? You can print as much as you want. Digital money? You can create trillions with the push of a button. And they have, oh boy, have they ever. Since 1971, when Nixon ended the gold standard, the purchasing power of the dollar has declined by over 95%. What $1 could buy in 1971 now requires about $30. Your dollar didn't lose value because of some natural economic force. It lost value because the government printed so much money that each individual dollar became worth less. This is inflation, and inflation is theft. When the government prints money, they're stealing from you. They're diluting the value of every dollar you own. Your savings shrink. Your paycheck buys less. Your future becomes dimmer. And where does that stolen value go? It goes to whoever gets the newly printed money first. When the Federal Reserve creates trillions of dollars, they don't send it to you. They don't put it in your bank account. They give it to banks, to large financial institutions, to corporations, to the already wealthy. These people and institutions get to spend the new money before prices rise. They buy assets, stocks, real estate, commodities. This drives up the prices of these assets, making the rich richer. By the time the money filters down to you, if it ever does, prices have already gone up. You're getting the money after it's already lost value. This is called the Cantillon Effect, named after an economist who figured this out 300 years ago. The first people to receive new money benefit. The last people to receive it, or people who never receive it and just watch their existing money lose value, they suffer. It's a transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class to the rich and well-connected. And it's baked into the system. It's not a bug. It's a feature. The money scam is designed to enrich the people who control the money supply at the expense of everyone else. Now, let me show you how this scam operates in the modern world, how it affects you personally, how it's stealing your future. Let's say you get a job, you work hard, you earn $50,000 a year, but you don't get paid in gold or silver or anything real. You get paid in dollars, fiat currency, numbers in your bank account. You think you earned $50,000. But what you really earned is the equivalent purchasing power of 50,000 current dollars. Now, the government and the Federal Reserve, they print money. Let's say they increase the money supply by 6% in a year. That means your $50,000 is now competing with 6% more dollars for the same goods and services. Prices go up. Inflation. Your $50,000 can now buy what $47,000 could buy last year. You lost $3,000 of purchasing power. You worked the same hours. You produced the same value. But you're poor. That $3,000 wasn't destroyed. It was transferred to the people who got the newly created money first. Meanwhile, your boss tells you, "Great news. We're giving you a 3% raise. You're making $51,500 now." Sounds good, right? But inflation was 6%. You're still losing. You're making more dollars, but you're poor in real terms. This is the scam in action. You think you're getting ahead. You're actually falling behind. And savings? Forget about it. Let's say you manage to save $10,000. You put it in a savings account. The bank pays you, what, 0.5% interest? Maybe 1% if you're lucky? But inflation is 6%. Your $10,000 loses 5% of its value every year. In 10 years, that $10,000 has the purchasing power of $6,000. You saved responsibly. You did the right thing, and you got punished for it. Meanwhile, people who borrowed money and bought assets, they win. If you took out a mortgage at 3% interest and bought a house, and inflation runs at 6%, you're effectively being paid to borrow. The real value of your debt is decreasing faster than the interest is accruing. The system rewards debtors and punishes savers. It's completely backwards from what you've been told your whole life. You've been told to save money, to be frugal, to live below your means and put money away for the future. But in a system where money is constantly losing value, saving money is a guaranteed way to get poor. Have you ever felt like you're working harder and harder, but your money just doesn't go as far as it used to? You're not imagining things. What if I told you that the very money sitting in your bank account is designed to lose value over time? It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's the fundamental reality of our modern financial system. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a crucial lesson about how money truly works, a lesson they don't teach you in school. Stick with me for the next few minutes, and I'll break down what I call the scam of modern money, and, more importantly, give you real, actionable steps to protect your wealth and build a secure financial future. So what exactly is this scam? It all boils down to two key concepts: inflation and fiat currency. Let's start with fiat currency. The dollar, the euro, the yen, pretty much every currency in the world today is a fiat currency. This means its value isn't backed by a physical commodity like gold or silver. Instead, its value is based purely on the trust and faith we have in the government that issues it. Now, that might sound fine on the surface. We trust our governments, right? But here's the catch. Because it's not tied to anything tangible, central banks can print more of it. A lot more. Whenever the economy needs a boost or the government needs to spend more than it brings in through taxes, the solution is often to just create more money out of thin air. This leads us directly to the second part of the problem: inflation. Imagine you have a pizza cut into 8 slices. Now, imagine someone magically adds 8 more identical slices to the box. Suddenly, you have 16 slices. Does that mean you have more pizza? No, the pizza is the same size, but each slice is now smaller. Money works in a similar way. When central banks print more money, The total amount of stuff, goods, and services in the economy doesn't magically increase. There's just more money chasing the same amount of stuff. This makes each individual dollar, or each slice of the pizza, worth less. This is inflation. It's a slow, silent thief that erodes the purchasing power of your savings. The $100 you saved last year can't buy you the same amount of groceries today. That's not an accident. It's a feature of the system. Why would they design a system like this? Well, a little bit of inflation is actually seen as good for the economy by mainstream economists. It encouraged people to spend and invest their money rather than hoarding it under a mattress, which keeps the economic engine running. It also makes it easier for governments and corporations to pay back their debts. If you borrow $1 million today and in 10 years that $1 million is worth less due to inflation, you're essentially paying back the loan with cheaper money. So the system benefits borrowers like big governments and corporations at the expense of savers like you and me. The money you work so hard for and diligently save is constantly losing value, making it incredibly difficult to get ahead by simply saving cash. You're running on a financial treadmill that's constantly being sped up. So how do we get off this treadmill? How do we protect ourselves from this systemic erosion of our wealth? The answer isn't to stop saving. The answer is to stop saving in cash. You need to transform your savings from currency, which is designed to be spent, into assets, things that hold or increase their value over time. You need to become an investor, not just a saver. This might sound intimidating, but it's more accessible than you think. Let's break down some of the most common ways to do this. First, let's talk about the stock market. When you buy a stock, you're not just buying a digital ticker symbol. You're buying a small piece of ownership in a real business. A business that sells products or services, owns property, and generates profits. As the economy grows and inflation happens, these companies can often raise their prices, and their revenues and profits tend to grow as well. This, in turn, can increase the value of your stock. A great way for beginners to start is with low-cost index funds, or ETFs, like those that track the S&P 500. Instead of trying to pick individual winning stocks, you're buying a small slice of the 500 largest companies in the U.S. You're diversifying your risk and betting on the long-term growth of the overall economy, which historically has been a very good bet. Next up is real estate. Like stocks, real estate is a real asset. It's a physical property, a piece of land. Over the long term, property values have historically tended to rise with inflation. Plus, if you own a rental property, you can generate a steady stream of cash flow from rent. And guess what? As inflation rises, you can typically increase the rent you charge, meaning your income from the property can also keep pace with rising costs. For many people, their own home is their largest asset and a primary way they build wealth. Even if you can't afford to buy an investment property outright, you can invest in real estate investment trusts, or REITs. These are companies that own and operate income-producing real estate, and you can buy shares in them just like you would a regular stock. Now, let's touch on a more traditional store of value, precious metals like gold and silver. For thousands of years, gold has been seen as real money. It's durable, it's rare, and it can't be printed out of thin air. When people lose faith in fiat currencies or when there's a lot of economic uncertainty, they often flock to gold as a safe haven. It's seen as a hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. While gold doesn't produce income like a stock or a rental property, it acts as a form of financial insurance. Owning a small percentage of your portfolio in physical gold or a gold ETF can provide stability and help preserve your purchasing power during turbulent times. It's not about getting rich with gold. It's about not getting poor. Finally, we have to talk about the new kid on the block, cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin. Many people see Bitcoin as digital gold. Why? Because its supply is mathematically limited to 21 million coins. No government or central bank can decide to create more Bitcoin. This characteristic of absolute scarcity makes it a powerful potential hedge against the endless money printing of fiat currencies. Now I have to be clear. Bitcoin is much more volatile and risky than the other assets we've discussed. Its price can swing wildly. However, its fundamental design as a decentralized, scarce digital asset is a direct response to the problems of the modern financial system. For those with a higher risk tolerance, allocating a small portion of their portfolio to Bitcoin could be a way to protect against the debasement of traditional currencies. So let's put it all together. The system is designed for your cash savings to lose value. Fighting this isn't about working more hours or cutting back on lattes. It's about changing your mindset from a saver to an investor. The strategy is to take the currency you earn and convert it into a diversified portfolio of assets. This doesn't mean you should have zero cash. You absolutely need an emergency fund in a savings account for unexpected life events. But any money beyond that, your long-term savings, needs to be put to work. A sensible approach for most people could be a mix of low-cost stock market index funds for growth. Maybe some real estate through your own home or REITs for income and appreciation, and a small allocation to gold or even Bitcoin as a hedge against systemic risk. The most important step is to start. Start learning, start small, and start now. Read books, listen to podcasts, watch videos like this one. The more you understand how money really works, the less you fear it, and the more empowered you'll be to take control of your financial destiny. You don't need to be a Wall Street genius to do this. You just need to understand the rules of the game and play it to your advantage. The scam is that they make you think saving cash is the safe and responsible thing to do. The truth is, in today's world, it's one of the riskiest financial decisions you can make. The real safety lies in owning a piece of the world's productive assets. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has opened your eyes to the way our financial system operates. If you found this valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content on how to build real, lasting wealth. Let me know in the comments what your favorite asset to invest in is. See you in the next video.